Hello and welcome back to the Pencil YouTube channel. And today we're talking about an exciting new feature, our Agent Builder. Joining me today, we've got the Prince of Prompting, the A-star of AI, Pencil's Head of Education and Enablement. I'm here with Tim. Tim, how you doing?
Hi Lee, good to be here.
So today we're talking about the Agent Builder. What on earth is the Agent Builder?
So the Agent Builder really represents a huge shift in the way that users can take advantage of and supercharge the way that they produce on Pencil. So it's one of the new features that I think I've been most excited about in my whole time at Pencil. And it's really taking something familiar. Agent Builder as a term isn't new. We've had an Agent Builder for months at this point, and it was a strong feature. It enabled us to create very customized text outputs using large language models. What our fantastic product and engineering teams have done is really amp up the power of this by integrating a number of different tools and third-party services so that our users can build these really powerful, iterable processes using AI that take out the heavy lifting of prompting in fine detail with multiple different references every time they need something new.
I tell you, that sounds bloody exciting. That sounds really cool. And Pencil keep the big hits and the big new features coming. But let me ask you, in black and white, who's this feature for?
I mean, it's a difficult question because it's for everyone. There are so many things that you can do with this. I think in my experience, there are a number of different starting avenues for this. First of all, it's for the time poor marketer. So this will enable so much integration of different sources and will enable marketers to bring in real data, real information into their Pencil processes, keeping everything in a single system. Equally, it's for the designer, the motion designer, the retoucher who are doing those same, I'm not going to say soul destroying, but those same soul destroying jobs that
repetitive processes.
No, let's go soul destroy. Where it's just a very minor retouch after very minor retouch after very minor retouch across hundreds of different adaptations of an asset. This can take out so much of that work by giving them a single engine that will drive changes based on really simple defined prompts.
That is a hell of a selling point. That sounds really cool. Okay, without further ado, can we take a look at one in action?
Absolutely. So the first example that I'm going to show you is based around PDP copy. So we're looking at ecom here. The reason why I'm going to use this as an example is because it's a good way of combining a number of different elements of the builder. So this is really a kind of good educational example to use because we're going to build in copy generation, we're going to build in image and video generation, and we're going to be drawing in additional sources of information from other tools. So let's come in and take a look. First of all, I'm going to show you how this is built, then let's look at some example outputs from it. So with any custom built agent, we can look under edit and see the instructions that we use to build it. We have a number of different elements that need to be completed to set up an agent. Agent name and description are there for the end user. So when you're setting up an agent that you're going to be rolling out to other people, it's really important to think about what the user journey is for those people. And that starts with being really clear about what an agent is for. You're going to build this for a purpose. If people don't understand what that purpose is, they might misuse it. So we've got agent name, we've got description. If there are particular rules that you need a user to know, that description box is really helpful for that as well. So if, for example, you're producing an agent that uses real data, you might want to say, don't include identifiable information about people. within that description. Then the instructions are really the core of this. So the instructions are going to do a few different things, and we have some recommendations around how you structure the instructions for a custom agent. The wonderful Jules, our head of creative enablement, has built a great blog about this on our community platform as well. So if you want a kind of slower, long form read about how to structure these instructions, please do go and look at that. It's fantastic. What I've done is I've started off just framing the task. So a really simple summary that the large language model that powers this will be able to immediately understand what it's supposed to be doing. I always like to structure my agents in terms of required inputs. So what does the user need to provide in order for the agent to do its job properly? And I've got all of the standard information you'd need for a product description page here. I'm also baking in some rules. I'm a bit hit and miss. Sometimes I put my rules into the flow of my instructions. Sometimes I'll have a specific rules section elsewhere in my instructions. There we go. So we've got some particular guidance and references here in terms of where to source information about best practice on Amazon. I like drawing from a URL because if we draw from a URL, that data is always going to be fresh. I'm not going to have to come back to this agent and update these instructions every time that the retailer updates their best practice guidance. We've put in some creative constraints. We've put in the required outputs. These required outputs here are going to be absolutely vital. There we go. We've got various other elements baked in. I'm not going to go through everything directly now. The next thing we need to do is select our conversation model. So this is choosing our large language model. This is really the powerhouse of this process. And we have a number of different model types available. In fact, let me just remove this model for a second to show you. You can choose between reasoning, deep thinking, fast response, and multimodal input and output models here. Some of the models we have will appear in multiple categories. These are really just a way of guiding you towards the right type of model for the purpose you need. Here, really, actually, I want a multimodal input and output model because we're going to be producing across multiple modalities with this agent. And one of the great new things that's come into Pencil alongside this is this ability to just choose best available model. And that means that your agent will always be up to date with the best model for your purpose. We then have the ability to bring in tools, and you can select up to 5 tools in a single agent. Here, I have a requirement to produce text, which is handled by my conversational model, image, and I'm going to need image referencing here because the user needs to bring in a product image to kickstart the process in this. Image to video, because there's a video component generated from one of the generated images. What this is going to do is generate an image, then based on the image that it generates, generate a video for me. I've brought in a third-party tool. So I've got GWI Consumer Research, and way back up in my instructions, I've said that the copy in the PDP should relate to the audience specified by the user based on data drawn from GWI Consumer Research. And also, I've just realized I've asked it to visit a URL, so I need to add the visit URL tool for this to work effectively as well. Finally, we can add extra sources of knowledge. This is where if I didn't use that live link to a URL for guidance, I might bring in some documentation into my knowledge section. Once I've got that agent in place, anyone in my workspace can use it. And actually, anyone across my subscription, if created by a subscription level admin, will be able to use it. So you can roll this out to all your workspaces in one go. I've then got an example that I've already built. This is quite a slow agent because I'm asking it to do so many things. So we're not going to sit there and watch it load live. What you can see here is that my user doesn't even have to have a conversation with this agent. The inputs are so defined that it's just an upload of a product image and then the key product details that are included in the agent description. So there's no, can you help me with this? And the agent having to come back with, sure, provide me with this, this, and this. Equally though, the agent is built so that it will guide users to provide this information if they don't do it in their first prompt. And we got a great output from this. We have PDP copy that's aligned with Amazon guidance that takes into account the correct product in the correct way. I also asked this agent to provide a little explanation of how it used the audience insight information that it pulled from the GWI consumer research tool. Really not a necessary step. It's mostly there as a proof of concept so that you can see that application as well. Then it produced a series of images, and it's done exactly what I asked for. So a white background image, super simple. This hasn't been a heavy lift for the image gen tool at all, just a nice little bit of shadow there. An adaptation of that into a simple infographic. So I asked to put 4 product benefits next to image on white background. Again, super simple, but big time saver. Then we've generated a lifestyle image. Let me just expand that out a little bit. So I wanted an image of a person showcasing the product with a hint of it being in use. And from that, I then generated a lifestyle video. I actually wanted it without audio. It generated some audio anyway. I'm going to mute that audio just so it doesn't distract me. And that's a first pass. That's one prompt producing me all of those different outputs. I can absolutely come back and request edits on any of those outputs as well. So these aren't 100% perfect, but it's not going to take me very many extra steps to get there.
I love that you don't have to go through and ask, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm trying to achieve. You know, by baking in all that information, it's almost like if I'm at the barber's, I probably need a haircut, right?
Absolutely. And I think the other step change here is going from a situation where, yes, you could have done each of these things before, but it would be a interrupted flow. It would be, hey, can you generate me PDP copy based on this? Now I'm going to switch into an image generation agent. Image gen. Here's all of this extra context that I need to type in for you. Please, can you produce an image that does this? Great. Now, can you add this to the image to make an infographic? Great. Now, can you put it into a lifestyle shoot? Great. Now, can we make a video from it? We've gone from 5 or 6 different steps requiring quite deep human interaction to a single flow, a single output.
That's so cool. It's the more work that you put in at that beginning stage, you know, building the agent, the more that you're going to get out of it and the more time you're going to save as you go down the line. That's so cool. But that's great for something that you've already made. Can we see something built from scratch?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few different applications that we can use for this. I am going to go with something reasonably creative as an application here. And let's come in to one of my other workspaces to work on this from scratch. So we'll come into agents, and this time I'm going to go to new agent. And what I want to do in this instance is I'm actually going to do something that's kind of internal purpose for my team. This is something that would be quite a behind the scenes function, but hopefully we can see some effective ad applications of this. So I want to do a product lifestyle shoot imagery agent. The reason I'm doing this is when our trainers are delivering training sessions, I like to have imagery of the trainers holding and interacting with products that our client brands use. It just adds a nice touch of fun and interest to training slides. But This would be an agent concept that would be really, really useful and applicable for ad and marketing materials for pretty much any brand. My description, as I've said, needs to serve the user. So I've got generate lifestyle imagery and videos that integrate a particular referenced person and a branded product into a seamless lifestyle shoot. For my instructions, I'm going to break down into the parts that we've already discussed. In terms of required inputs here, 1 to 4 reference images of the person to be featured in the shoot. I actually very often find great results from a single reference, but I do know that sometimes, particularly if you're going for a slightly different angle than you have a reference image of, multiple angles can just help the image models to synthesize that character consistency a little bit better. 1 to 2 clear product images. Again, 1 is usually enough, but if you have a product that needs to be held at a different angle, providing that alternate angle can be quite helpful. Any additional notes about usage or tone of the required images? In many cases, you wouldn't need this because as a brand, you'll be drawing on the brand library for that information. I'm building this as a kind of multi-brand agent. So I just want to make sure that note's in there so that whenever we're producing images, I can do it with this single agent, not having to replicate this into different brand workspaces. Then I'm going to come in to the thought process. So we've got a thought process articulated, and you'll notice I've put thought process brackets silent. That's because I don't want the user to receive a full digest of everything that the model thought about in the back end. And then output. Let me just spell output correctly. The model wouldn't actually need that, but I can't deal with any spelling mistakes in my instructions. So I've got a number of steps here. Here, we're really thinking about controlling the way that the agent thinks. And actually, we're working backwards, really. We're thinking, what does the agent need to give us that end result that we've asked for? So we've got digest and process the user's inputs, understand what the product is, work out its approx dimensions. If unsure, ask the user for clarification. I could have gone 2 ways here. I could have given that information as a required input, but I want to keep this as simple as possible for my user. I actually want my user to only have to put in reference images as an absolute essential. Consider how the product would be presented in lifestyle imagery. Search the web for information about the brand and product type. We wouldn't need to do this in a single brand application because, again, you'd have the brand library to fall back on here. But because I want to use this across multiple brands within one workspace, I need another way to access that information regardless of what the brand might be. Develop 10 high-level concepts for the product shoot. Rank those ideas from most cliche to most boring. Select the median idea in this ranking. This is a little trick that I like to put in because AI is essentially pattern recognition and pattern replication. There's a tendency towards either the generic or the cliche if you're not careful. This is a way that you can build in thinking that will replicate a human-like approach to avoiding cliche. It's not foolproof. We'll see what happens when I get the outputs. Then I'm moving on to the outputs. I've done this as thought process and outputs because they're quite tightly linked here. So generate a lifestyle image, then use the generated lifestyle image to generate a video. And I've gone with no music, just speech and diegetic sound. And then ask the user for feedback on required events. The last absolute essential that I want to bake in here is rules. So I've got a few rules in place. This rules section is the part that I'm most likely to need to iterate on when I'm testing this agent. But I know that I want 916 outputs here. So I'm specifying that for both image and video. I know that we want the product to be the focus here. So we need to have the label, the brand facing the camera and unobscured. And I know that there's a tendency in video gen for speech to sometimes become garbled. So if it does generate speech, I want to avoid that, and I want the speech to be in English. I've just thought of an extra one. Logically, it would make it 0.4, but I'm going to make it 0.5. It doesn't matter to the agent in the slightest. Product must be shown in full. No cut. No parts of. So, product must be shown in full. No cut-off elements. No parts of product out of frame. That's because quite often the data sets for different product types will include large amounts of imagery that are not product showcases. We know that in marketing, we want to show the product in full. That's not always going to be the case in the full data set, and we want to direct towards the parts of the data set that are suitable for marketing imagery. For my conversation model here, I'm going to choose multimodal input and output and go for best available, so that this can continue to be a useful agent for as long as we need it, effectively. And then my tools, I want to be able to do a web search, because I've mentioned web searching in identifying product information. I want to be able to do image reference, and we'll use best available there. Oh, I can actually apply my web search. There we go. I want to be able to do image to video, and let's apply that. I don't think I need any third-party tools in this particular instance, so I think we're all good with those three. And I don't have supplementary knowledge because I'm doing that web search process. But again, within a single brand agent, you may well want to bring in guidance and documentation around how you produce your lifestyle imagery, your product imagery. We can now test this out before we publish it, and then make any changes to the instructions that we need to make. Make any changes to the instructions that need to be enacted before publication. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to attach, right, so I've brought in a reference of myself as the test character in this case, and then let's get a product in here as well. And I'm bringing in an ice cream product from one of our fake brands, Ambrosia. And I just need to make sure that I'm providing any additional information here. So playful, high fashion, lifestyle, shoot, elegant and opulent with a light side. Bit of a vague instruction, we'll see how we cope. So, wow, what a great result. It's done pretty much exactly what I wanted it to do. That is the power of building an agent.
Amazing. What a great result. And thank you for such a detailed tutorial. Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. And just a message to anyone watching, please do try it out yourself. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do. So give it a go with other applications. Let us know how it goes.